welcome to the advice episode. This is a fun one to do. If you have any questions you want advice on, throw them in the comments. We'll be happy to answer them. Watch and or listen while we tackle tough and sometimes taboo topics filmed live over drinks. This platform allows us to articulate our thoughts and challenge our beliefs. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy. All right, we are live. Welcome to SipTalk, episode 265. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by James, the Boswell, philosopher, philanderer, philanthropist, philatelist, phlebotomist, a man of many PHs. How's that phlegm? Clearing up?
I'm a lot better now. Still coughing up a little bit, but like nowhere near as miserable as I was last week or the week before.
Well, I'm happy to hear you suffered through the last couple of episodes, and you're back. You cracked a can, I heard.
Yeah, some leftover PBR from the Superb Owl.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, treated ourselves to some premium beer.
I got my Skull mug here, full of beer. I was afraid that my bar was all tapped out, but there was some Michelob Ultra left, and when that runs dry, I got the hard stuff to my left. But today we are answering people's questions. We are offering advice, not exactly unsolicited advice. We asked for people to ask us for advice. So our advice is solicited, as were their questions. And this was really inspired by the Reddit thread. You call them threads on Reddit? Subreddit. Am I the asshole? AITA or AITAH. Are there those two separate subreddits?
Yeah, I think the original one had like more stringent rules for what was allowed to be posted, and so they added the H to kind of let people post pretty much anything.
I see. Okay. Well, Reddit's got a lot of rules. I'm still trying to learn the rules of Reddit, but
well, the problem with any of the posts on like "Am I the asshole" or the H version is deducing whether or not this is something that somebody made up or if it's real. Because you get a lot of people that generate either AI content or just make up a story.
Why would someone do that?
Well, the main reason would be they like attention, or they're trying to farm points on their Reddit account for getting the thing upvoted.
You did tell me about this the other week, that you have to get certain, in order to post in certain subreddits, you have to have a certain amount of karma, and your karma is basically how many upvotes you get on your comments and how many upvotes you get on your posts, and those are two
so if you
karmas.
submit a text post, like that'll give you post karma, which for some people is harder to get. And like, yeah, there was one, I think even from earlier today, where they told the story. I don't even remember what it was about, but somebody was like, hey, this is like exactly what happens if you just like ask ChatGPT, give me a rage bait post about whatever. And so AI is really poisoning the well.
Some of these are fake. Yeah. And we talked literally last episode about dead internet theory and about how the majority of the content is becoming AI generated content. So on that note, if you're watching us live on Instagram, live on TikTok, and you want to ask us a question or ask advice, feed it to us in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch, you can ask us in the comments as well. We are lucky enough to have Mr. Rosh Galeb in the background feeding us your comments from Instagram. So your Instagram comments will get to us. If you're watching this post live production, ask your questions in the comments and we will get back to you. I promise you that. So
I want to start off with the Instagram questions of us soliciting.
So we got some good questions in response to my question. What do you need advice on? So,
all right, so I want to read the first one because this one's close to my heart. Should I leave the United States if we go to war and move to the Dominican Republic?
And what would be your answer on that?
My answer is an emphatic yes. Like I'm considering doing the same, but not the Dom Rep.
Well, you're going to be looking at Tenerife.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll be there in like a little over 2 weeks.
And lucky enough,
2 weeks.
lucky enough that's even further from the U.S. So that's a good location to be if we end up in war.
Yeah, and also like being on an island sounds kind of nice if the world starts going to shit.
My concern with being on an island, though, is that would be where a lot of people would want to go. You know what I mean? Especially one that's like close to the U.S. I think the further away, the better.
Yeah,
But
they're like 3,000 miles away.
so, but I think we both endorse that as long as you're not, as long as they don't instate the draft and then you're a drafted Dodger. But I think we're old enough that we wouldn't be drafted. So,
You and I probably
you
not.
and I, but not everybody. So,
Well, we don't
but
know how old the person who asked this question is.
do you support a draft?
No,
No, why not?
it's bad policy for a bunch of reasons. The
I
first is that like you like to have an effective army, you need to have good training, and if you're drafting people, they're not going to be good soldiers. Like you want people that want to be there or at least signed up for the possibility of it. Like if you're a soldier, you might not want to go to war, but you chose to enlist in the army. So you always knew that was a possibility.
yeah, but if
Whereas with the drafted person, like,
they don't want to be there.
yeah, that you're like they're not going to be an effective soldier because they're not trained. They don't want to be there. Like the morale's not there, and it ends up ruining a country's economy after the war. Let's assume that you win. Like you just like the casualty rate among conscripted soldiers is much higher than professional soldiers
Well,
for obvious
yeah,
reasons.
because yeah. So my thinking is a couple of different fold here. But if the country is big enough, the population is big enough, and you have a big enough army, you don't need a draft. Um, but if the country is actually really in 100% red alert defense mode, then maybe it's not a bad idea. And
Well, here's what I would say.
for a smaller country, having everybody even military trained is not. I think our country's way too big, and also it's super divided, and our politics
Yeah.
here are a mess. But in smaller countries, I could see that flying over a little bit better.
Well, I would say if your country is being invaded, you can make a better argument for a draft. But if
Than
your
versus a
country is the
peacetime
one
versus a
invading
peacetime.
somebody else, then there is no argument for a draft.
Yeah, I agree. Depending, yeah, I mean, well, look at Russia and Ukraine.
Right.
All right, let's get off the draft question next. So we support you leaving the country if the U.S. is going to war, providing you're not part of the mandatory draft if that's instated, because then you'd be a draft dodger. Next up, should I invest in a chicken coop? Obviously, the price of eggs are very high. First off, everybody's complaining about the price of eggs. I don't know that many people that actually eat eggs on a regular basis.
Yeah, the problem is that eggs go into all sorts of other crap. So
Sure, but on an individual like family basis, let me ask you a question. How many eggs do you buy? How often do you go to the grocery store?
I average maybe like every 7 to 10 days,
Oh, okay, it's not bad. How many times do you buy a dozen eggs?
a couple times a year.
And I think a lot of people, don't consume as many eggs as maybe they're being led to believe. Right now, there's
Well,
a lot of attention on eggs. Some people do. Don't
the
get me wrong,
the,
and I,
the
I
thing is,
understand that I think what you're going to say is the price of eggs drives up the price of everything else.
no, that's not what I'm going to say.
Okay, go ahead.
What I'm going to say is when people talk about the price of eggs today, it's really like the price of eggs is a meme as a stand-in for the general cost of living. Because over the last election, what was one of the bigger issues? Well, inflation and the cost of living, and people bitched about the cost of eggs for some reason. That was the product that
Yeah.
just got singled out, and so now whenever people are talking about Trump, like, well, look at the price of eggs; they're higher now, and so it's not about eggs per se. It's eggs are a stand-in for
It's
the
an
economy right
indicator
now.
of the kind. Yeah, I buy that. So, should you have a chicken coop? So, I actually like eggs. When I would say every day that I don't go to work. So, like Sunday and some Saturdays and holidays, I almost always cook eggs. When I have guests over, I cook eggs like a madman. I really like eggs. We actually we were gifted some eggs by my late mother's friend Anna, who's a sweetheart of a lady. She's like the most giving person I probably ever met, and she brought over like 3 dozen eggs last Sunday. So I just started hard boiling eggs and bringing them for breakfast, which I think is ideal. I love eggs, but most people don't eat eggs like that. Should you get a chicken coop? I think if you have the space for it, all right. And I've heard of people in New York City building chicken coops, or having chickens in their apartment. That's crazy. Don't do that.
Yeah.
But if you have the space for it and you have the time to manage chickens, which they actually don't require that much management, but they do require regular maintenance, daily maintenance. They have to be fed daily. You got
You
to
gotta
make sure.
clean
Go ahead.
you gotta clean the coop every once in a while, you gotta feed them. And
You
what
got to
I would
protect
say
them.
is
You got to protect
huh?
them. You
Well,
have to,
yeah, I think this is unless you're eating an absolute shitload of eggs, then this economically does not make much sense because like the other thing that you have to remember is even with the price of eggs being high right now, buying eggs from the store is cheaper than like the eggs that you're going to get from the chicken coop because the people like the farms that produce eggs
I'm,
have so many advantages with economies of scale.
I was just going to use that phrase, economies of scale. Exactly. It's going to cost you a lot to manage your couple dozen eggs, and unless you're consuming lots of eggs or selling them or giving them away, like
Yeah, I
Anna
mean, if
was.
you think this is something that would be fun and you want to try it out because you actually like the idea of trying to raise chickens and stuff, then go for it. If you're doing this because you are just looking to save some money, then
It's not.
the
It's
plan's
not,
going to backfire.
yeah, not just the cost per egg of having the chickens and feeding the chickens, but also the cost of time that you have to invest.
Oh,
Remember the
Debbie
episode we did
Ferry
about
asked, "What are we drinking?" So I've got PBR and you got Mick Ultra.
Michelob Ultra? I also have some Dewar's off to the left after the Ultra is out. The last thing I was going to say about chickens, I completely lost it. Oh, I was going to say we did that episode about living off the grid. If I
Yeah.
was living off the grid and I wanted to garden, chickens would definitely be in my little house farm. Next question: what shouldn't people spend money on?
That's so broad.
It's obviously it's broad, but what are some things that a lot of people? I'll give you one. Extended warranties or
Yeah.
general warranties.
Hmm.
Any small level insurance, I think, is a really poor is money very poorly spent. I think insurance policies with low deductibles is also money poorly spent because you're spending more money on the premium, unless, of course,
Well,
like
that depends.
I well hear me out. Unless, of course, if you do max out the deductible. So my car insurance policy has $1,000 deductible, but if I was able to get that like to a higher level, I don't think I would go much higher than that because in the event that I did need to pay that deductible, then it almost could be cost prohibitive. So you want your
Yeah. So
deductible to be affordable on the fly.
yeah, and you think about it, I was thinking more along the lines of like health insurance is like you got to assess what your medical needs are. So if you've got health problems and you're at the doctor pretty frequently, then going with a lower deductible plan makes a lot of sense. Me, I haven't been to the doctor in years. So like I'm actually thinking about just wiping my health insurance completely off because like
You don't
it's
use
just
it. Yeah.
wasted money, man.
Well, I think the older you get, the more important health insurance is. But
Yeah, that's what people tell me.
so look, the other thing I probably wouldn't spend money on is subscription based products. I think the amount so everything is being subscriptionified, even many aspects of cars and things like that. I
Yeah,
think if you can
paying for
keep
heated seats is bullshit.
your regular recurring bills to a minimum, try to pay things in full. If they offer an annual membership where you get a discount, do that because if you can afford to, because you're spending more money that way, and just you have to be making a lot of money just to get by, and these things add up.
Ooh, I've got a good one, and this is just a general advice.
Yeah,
With certain limited exceptions, don't buy new.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say that. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Like
What exceptions would you make to buy new clothes? Some.
some clothes,
Mhm.
anything that has like a hygiene aspect to it, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Uh,
Um, and also anything that has like a known shelf life, and I'm not talking about like expiration of foods and stuff, but like for example, this week I upgraded some stuff in my PC and I use liquid cooling for my CPU, and liquid coolers generally have a life of about 5 years. So I wouldn't recommend buying anything that you know has like a kind of a lifespan before it just fails.
yeah,
Like don't buy those used unless you are certain when it was purchased and how much life it still has in it.
I was going to say motorcycle helmets. You're supposed to buy new.
Oh, safety equipment.
Yeah, safety equipment, baby car seats, motorcycle helmets, things like that.
Yeah.
But what else wouldn't I spend money on? It really depends on your economic status.
Well, you know what I would also say, and I'm just going to throw this again as a general thing. Anything designer.
I don't have really high. I mean, certain things I really like I like things that are going to last, but most of the designer shit is just cheap shit anyways. Like it's not.
Right. Like I think that you can get higher quality stuff at a lower price point, and for like designer stuff like Gucci or Louis Vuitton, it's like et cetera, et cetera. You are paying so much for a name and a logo,
Yeah,
and
it's not.
you're not really getting any increase in quality. Like the $2,000 handbag is probably just as well built as the $400 handbag. The $400 handbag just doesn't have a fancy name on it.
So Raj mentions parachutes should be bought new. I'll agree with him there. I would also say just spending money on things that just kind of you run through really quick. Like I don't know, I like to buy like more quality pieces that will last a decade or more, rather than just the shit that like you run through really quick.
Well, here's good advice. What and this is about like buying tools, right? Is
Hmm.
like when you're just starting out with a hobby, like let's say
Oh,
you're working on
this is
cars or
good.
whatever, right? Buy a cheap tool, and then if that tool breaks, buy a very good version of that tool. So
Yeah,
like start off with something inexpensive, and then once you've established that you either need a higher quality or you're dedicated to the hobby enough that like the higher quality item is better. Like don't buy top tier gear for whatever you're getting into until you know for sure that it's something that you want to do.
yeah. I do that a lot of the time with tools. I end up thinking that buying the most expensive tool, the best tool, is going to help me somehow do a better job. But at the end of the day, most of the shit that I do is like I'm pretty much a novice. You know, it's not going to help me do it that much better. Um, all right. Anything else that's tickling you here on this question, or can
No,
we
we
move
could do
on?
an entire episode on that.
Yeah,
So
well, we
like,
probably could. So, next question then: what advice would you give to somebody with $20,000 to invest?
well,
I'm
we
thinking
need to
lotto
first state
tickets. Lotto
we
tickets.
legally we need to say neither of us are financial advisors and this is not financial advice.
I second that.
Um, with that in mind, it all depends on your risk tolerance. Like if you want something that is relatively low risk and kind of fire and forget, I really like one of the index funds that has a covered call strategy built into it. And that's going to be it. Like, for example, if you want to have exposure to the NASDAQ, like QYLD or QYLG are both tickers that follow the Nasdaq but sell covered calls, so they generate a pretty good dividend return every single month. And you can do the same with either XYLD or XYLG or RYLD or RYLG
That's just
for
all right.
exposure to either the S&P or the Russell 2000. Um, if you're looking for something riskier, then you're gonna have to do some research because
I think I don't know. I would advise against the stock market. I think if you just if you want to do for sure money, a CD, but realistically, I would I would play it safe, especially if that's all of your savings. I think
it all depends. Again, it comes down to your risk tolerance because a CD right now you're probably going to be getting somewhere between like 4.5 and 5.5%,
not a
right?
whole lot.
So
Yeah,
like Q yield,
but
for
risk.
example,
I think this is
and
a very individualized answer to whoever's asking the question. We need to know your financial
yeah,
situation. You
but
know
like for
your
example, and also for full disclosure, I own shares in Q yield, but like Q yield's yielding like 11 to 12%. It's
you want to
riskier, but it's
you.
paying off a lot better.
I just finished this book called Nudge, and they talked about Sweden, and they allowed people to choose their pension plans, and there was
Mhm.
an automatic default, which is what most people went with. But a lot of people went with this one that had a 500% return the previous year. Which, if you think about it, like if a
That's
company
black swan levels.
if something had a 500% return, it's probably not going to have a high return the next year, which is
There's no
exactly what
way.
happened. And what ended up happening was the best pension was the one that everybody defaulted in because that had the most investors into that plan and ultimately did the best. Um, but I don't know. I don't want to give too much specific advice to the person that asked that question because I don't want to steer you one way or the other. The next question is, how do I make quick money?
Well, I'm going to reference kind of the key rule in finance, which is there is a direct correlation
to
between
speed
your
and risk.
tolerance for risk and the potential return that you will get. So if you want to make quick money, and again, this is not financial advice because, like, well, this is terrible financial advice, but if you want to make quick money, gamble.
Well, and that's why I joked around about playing the lottery, because that's basically, if you're looking for that quick return, it is going to be high risk. And my advice to you is, if you want to make quick money, go get another part-time job, or go do some type of,
But that's not quick money. That's by definition slow money.
well, I mean, if it's in addition to your current money, in a couple of weeks you could put in some overtime, or you could put in some extra time doing something else. I think that's probably the surest bet. I wouldn't tell you, if you wanted to make quick money, to enter a high risk situation, because that could very well put you in a worse situation off. For
Well,
example, if you had to pay your college tuition and you almost had all of it saved, and you thought going to the horse track and betting on horses would help you cover the gap. Does that sound familiar to you, James?
yeah, I remember. I was there. I
We're
wasn't the
not
one who
talking
had
about,
this idea.
we're not yeah we're
I
not talking
just
about either
facilitated it.
we're not talking about either one of us. While you may have facilitated it, I'm sure you offered your financial advice in that moment, saying, I think this is probably a bad idea.
Oh, I'm sure I did.
All
But
right, so
no, like the reason why I say gamble when it comes to making quick money is like there's no way to surefire make quick money, and so
well,
like
and you said it. The faster the money needed to be made, the
the
higher the
bigger the
risk.
risk.
That's
It's like,
and that's
yeah,
good.
you know what? Go ahead, buy some lotto tickets, man, or run like a 7 team parlay on this week on like this week's NBA. I don't know, like I don't endorse any of these strategies because you're more likely than not going to lose money.
Also, yeah, especially if you don't have that education, because you're trying to figure something out on the fly. Let's move on, because I don't. Let's get out of this quick money. Next question. It's a young person. I am struggling with deciding to pursue law, full time trading, or real estate, or other options. So this is a young person. What advice would you give to a young person who wants to maybe be a lawyer, maybe be a day trader, or maybe be into real estate?
Full time trading is the worst option you can
That
pick here.
that was my first piece of advice as well. Full
Is
time trading.
if you want to do investment and you want to do stock trading, then you're going to need go find a brokerage that's hiring, and you're going to need to sit for your series 7 and some series 60, whatever, depending on the state, and you're going to have to put in a bunch of long hours
Mhm.
working for people that don't treat you very well, but that can be a lucrative career. If you want to try day trading as your way of making income, then see my comments about gambling from 3 minutes ago.
And cryptocurrency, like, it's
Yeah,
just, it's a bad idea.
right.
So
So when it
then
comes to
let's look at
law,
law. Yeah,
um,
I have advice on this. I'm curious what yours is going to be. Yeah.
well, first of all, you need to understand how expensive law school is,
Hmm.
which probably will cost you somewhere between 200 and 300 grand by the time you finish year 3.
Okay, so that's money, and then there's also time.
Well, it's a full time investment, and just because you have a law degree and just because you pass the bar does not mean that you're automatically going to start making a lot of money. A lot of entry level attorney positions pay pretty poorly and are really, really tough. So it's going to be really similar to the whole going to work at an investment bank like Goldman Sachs or whatever. Is you're going to have to go through a lot of tests, and your entry level position is going to be a lot of hours doing unpleasant work for relatively low pay. It's and if you want to try and go into law for yourself right off the rip, you're probably going to fail because you need
The
that
experience.
all
You
the
need
people that run
experience.
their
You
own
need
law
to.
offices, you know how they get business? Connections.
Hmm. Yep.
Connections and also experience. You need to have a
You have to
track
have it.
record to
You have to
say,
have that track record, and you have to be. You have to, track record, but you also have to. People have to know who you are. There's a
right,
lot of law firms out there. So my advice on that is, first off, think about the time commitment, think about the money commitment, but then think about how your life is going to look over the next 6 to 8 years, and then moving forward. Once you do land that role, and you alluded to this, what life is going to look like. You mentioned long hours, but we're talking like 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m. until 10 p.m., midnight. You are doing all the hard, dirty work. It is it's a cool career. I love law. I don't have the I couldn't stick with it as long as it would take to be able to get where you want to be. And what you see is you see a lot of attorneys making good money, but that's what you don't see is a vast majority of the attorney population doing the really
Yeah.
hard work.
I dated a lawyer for 3 years. My brother dated a lawyer for 6 or 7 years. The the lawyer that I dated had lawyer friends, so I got to see a lot of what goes into it. And yeah, it's a lot of grunt work and a lot of crap for fleeting moments of glory and occasionally a good payday. But
Yeah.
it's
And
it's really tough. And so what I would say when it comes to whether it's law or real estate or like anything on the investment side, you need to figure out what actually interests you, because
well,
if you're pursuing any of these things purely for the money, you are going to end up unhappy no matter what your salary is.
let me talk on real estate first, just because that's my career history. Real estate is the easiest one of those things to get into.
Yeah.
I mean, you can day trade, but you need to have money to be able to trade to make money, which also you'll probably lose it because you don't know what you're doing. But real estate, easiest one to get into, but also requires just as much work as it would be to be an attorney or a doctor. But that's on you. Nobody's pushing you to do it. And it's after you get the license, once you become the agent. And there's a very great possibility that you're not going to make any money for a very long time, and it has a much higher failure rate than any of the other careers. So what you were getting at is figuring out what you want your life to look like in the future, and then also considering a career that is something that you would like, what you want your life to look like. I think, being an attorney sounds great at the very high level, but at many times it's not that lifestyle that you see in the movies, or you see the attorneys that you see are the ones that are doing great,
Yeah.
not the ones that are
Well,
struggling.
and that's why, like, your point about what do you think your life's going to look like in 5 or 10 years or whatever. But what I'm saying is, you need to pick something that's interesting to you, because it
Well,
doesn't matter if you make good money doing something. If you hate every moment of your life, the money doesn't matter.
so and the other thing is, this is a young person that asked the question. I would say that you also just have to you got to figure out if you want to do something, but then you just have to do it. And I think her issue is that pursuing one over the others is a big opportunity cost.
Yeah.
But I think because if you choose one, it means you're kind of giving up the others. But I think
No.
realistically, if you don't choose anything, you're giving up them all. But also, you you have to do to figure things out.
Well, you know
Right?
what?
And even if you did something for 4 years and decided you didn't want to do it, or you did something for 7 years and you decided you didn't want to do it, you're still going to be young.
So here's what I would say, and this is more towards like the law or the investment career track, is depending on how old you are, and it doesn't matter all that much, but find someone who works in that field. Find someone who's a mid-level attorney or a mid-level investment banker and say, "Hey, tell me about how you got here. Tell me about what goes into your job, and don't hold back and try and paint me a pretty picture. Tell me about the reality of what your day-to-day work is." Because like when I was in high school, I interned for an attorney at in Albany, a state attorney, right? And like I had many ideas about what being a lawyer would be like, and then interning with this person for 3 or 4 months and seeing what being an attorney was actually like completely changed my view on the profession.
I think, yeah, that's, and even if you did it for 6 months or even longer, like, I don't know, you're not
Like,
wasting that. We have so much time when you're young, and
yeah,
you don't understand. You tend to overestimate the short amount of time and underestimate the uh,
but
the
you
future.
you need to start investigating these things and figuring out what's going to work for
I'll
you.
do some homework. All right. So well, we just have a second. Let me hit the bar trivia question from last week. Bar trivia
Yeah.
question from last week. Mr. and Mrs. Plum have 6 daughters. Each daughter has one brother. How many people are in the Plum family? So the answer to that is there are 9 Plums. Since each daughter shares the same brother, there are 6 girls, one boy, 2 parents.
Yep.
9. All right, stay tuned to the end of this episode, and I will hit you with our new bar trivia question. I thought last week's the answer we gave this week was a pretty simple one. That was a gimme. This new one, I also think is super simple, but I think a lot of people are going to miss it. So stay tuned for that. We have Alexander. Better to learn some hand skill just in case, to study some skills, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, construction, anything. That way you can feed yourself. A person who has no skills, a person who has skills will never be hungry. And I agree. You do need to learn some laborious skills and an ability to make and do. And I think that's vastly overlooked, especially this day and
I'm
age.
gonna play devil's advocate here though, and say that like if you're looking to like be able to make money doing any one of these trades, be it plumbing or electrical or HVAC, like to get to
Well,
the point where you are employable to do those kinds of things, again, is going to require a significant time investment in training. And it's not going to be too different from law or investment banking, where you have to invest a lot of time up front where you're not making a lot of money. And so, like, sure, being able to fix things is useful, but being able to fix things professionally is just as
sure,
much of a time investment.
but even handyman skills or just an ability to work hard and do some blue collar work, I think is a skill that's overlooked quite a bit. But we got a lot of questions on here. I want to get to in the second half of this episode. Do you want to read your questions, or you want me to just start off with mine? Because I know you got some in here too.
I've only got a few, but I want to start with the "Does she like me" one because it's pretty
Okay,
easy.
this is good. This is from Compote Simple from the um, teen advice category. I think this is
Yeah.
teen advice. And what I did was I put some posts on Reddit for some feelers, and you know I found some of these that were referred to me, and these are pretty good questions in my opinion. So Compote Simple says, "Does she like me? She wants me to stay on the phone with her while she's sleeping. She always wants to do a video call so she can see my face. She compliments me a lot about my face, and she said I was majestic." So my guess is this is from like a 13-year-old or 15-year-old who's obviously got a girl that's digging him. And now I think the answer is
Well,
obvious, is that yes, she does like you, but you need to be the man and make the move. Now, if this was a "Am I in the friend zone" question, I would say
no,
no, in the sense that she tells you she wants to see your face. She tells you she's complimenting you. People generally don't compliment somebody they put in the friend zone, that because the compliment is to elicit a like kind response. Uh,
no. This to me, it's screaming like that she wants more attention from him, and he's not picking up on the signals,
well, that's what
which to
I'm saying.
you and I are obvious.
She's trying to elicit a like kind response, and I think he just needs to make a move. Um, I don't know how I feel about 13-year-olds kissing. I don't know how old this person is, but it sounds very super adolescent. Uh,
It doesn't matter. It's she's giving you all sorts of hints, and all you need to do is just follow through a little bit.
all right, can I hit this next one, because this is a complex one. You cool with that? The relationships
Okay.
one? All right. So the question is, how do I tell my boyfriend? And this is a relationship based question. My boyfriend, male 19, my boyfriend's friend, I'm sorry, my boyfriend's friend, male 19 years old, has feelings for me. I'm 18, female. I don't know how to tell my boyfriend about it. We have a decent relationship. However, recently, a few days ago, his bandmate, we'll call him C, was at our local skate park the same day I was. He was with some friends, and I was by myself practicing. Hours later, his friends left, and the park got less crowded, and he spotted me. To clarify, we don't have a close relationship, and there's no need for being his friend, no need for one being his friend's girlfriend, but he's my boyfriend's friend. We're cordial around each other, but he started to insinuate maybe that he had feelings when he spoke with me a little more, but also prefacing, saying that he didn't want to ruin our relationship or his relationship with my boyfriend. However, he went in for a kiss. It took me by surprise. I was very disgusted. I rejected it, setting a clear boundary that his behavior is unacceptable. And if he is a good friend, he wouldn't betray his friend like that or disrespect me or my relationship. Um, Abruptly, she abruptly left him there. However, I don't know what to say to my boyfriend. This Friday, they're hanging out. They're going to go to band practice. They're in the same band. So her boyfriend's friend tried to make a move on her, also backhandedly saying he didn't want to affect their relationship. What are your thoughts on this? First off, one, should she tell the boyfriend? Two, how should she tell the boyfriend if you think it's a good idea to tell the boyfriend?
Yes, she should tell the boyfriend.
And how should she tell him? Because also she doesn't want to ruin. There's another paragraph I intentionally cut out, but she doesn't want to ruin his relationship with his friend, not just because of their relationship, but also because they're in a band,
I
and she doesn't
understand
want to
that.
ruin the band.
But she's not the one who's ruining the relationship between the two guys. It's the boyfriend's friend is the one who took the risk of ruining that friendship.
You know what song
So,
this makes me think of? Jesse's Girl.
oh yeah.
Rick
Um,
Springsteen.
but yeah, she has to tell him, and she can just say, and what I would say is just tell the truth, tell the entire story, and say, hey, this is what happened.
Well, so my thinking on this is, first off, they aren't a band, and this
So
is
what?
rock. This is rock star life, my friend.
No, it's not.
If this band gets big, it's going to happen over and over again. But it sounds like the friend is a bit of an asshole. However, the reason you have to tell him is because if you did not tell him and this ever caught up to you, you would then become the liar. And
Well, it could
and
be that like the boyfriend's friend were like, hey, she came on to me.
well, I got a little bit of this explanation where it said, she said, what did she say? We were at a skate park. It got less crowded. To clarify, we don't have a close relationship. It's his friend. I was very disgusted, obviously, and rejected it. Now, the fact that she came out and said that made me think, because I know people, that maybe she embraced it for a split second
No,
and then
no,
said, no, 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 no,
n-
no.
no. You're reading something into there that isn't there.
Sure, but I
It
know people, and for her to explicitly say that she rejected it and was disgusted, I think,
no.
I,
You don't get to say I
I
know
don't.
people and then just make shit up.
But I think the fact that she's sharing this extra detail, which is kind of needless,
No, it's not needless. She's establishing that she did not want this and that
but
she
she used some extra language,
right
disgusting,
to emphasize her point.
or to cover her tracks.
No.
But either
She
way, but
she
either
needs
way, I
to
think we both agree she should tell him.
she needs to tell him, and I would just say this is what happened and just go step by step through the facts and go from there. And if he gets angry, then well, that's his prerogative.
All right, you want to hit the next question?
Let me go with this one because I like it. Um, am I the asshole for making a seat swapper cry?
All
So I
right,
play and I settle into my economy plus seat. Woman approaches me and asks me to change seats to 32B. So an economy plus seat is going to be in the front half of the plane. 32B is going to be all the way in the ass.
yeah.
So,
And also,
so
she paid for the seat. It's a
right.
plus seat.
So
Which, by the way, economy plus is still very uncomfortable. Just to
right,
make
but
sure.
you had to pay for it.
Yeah,
And
you had
so
to pay for
she
it.
says, "Can I switch the seats to 32B so her 9-year-old can sit with her?" I ask her if she's willing to repay me for the money I spent on the seat. She says I'm
Reasonable.
cruel for leaving her son with anxiety sitting alone. I asked if she offered the person next to her son her seat in economy plus, and she said she needed the legroom. I said she clearly cares more about her own comfort than her son's well being, and if she cared, she could give up her seat and move to the back. She breaks out into a screaming wail with "How could you?" 10 minutes later, a smiling man sits down next to me, grinning about his sweet upgrade. My partner says I'm the asshole for questioning her parenting in public and making her cry. Am I?
No, no. The thing is, she wanted to upgrade her son for
For free.
free, versus the right thing to do would have been to have acknowledged that you didn't pay for the seats, and what you would do is offer someone else the upgrade in exchange for being able to sit next to your son. You are the one that has to take the L, because these other people, they're not winning. They just paid for the seat and are
Oh,
expecting the seat.
I'm going to
And the
go
fact
one
that she
further here.
offered it to her, she offered it
I'm
to
going to
her if she would repay her.
I'm going to go one further here. When she was booking these seats, she had a choice as to whether to pay for one upgrade or two.
Well, maybe
She
or maybe not.
chose no, no, no.
Does
She
it say?
chose not to. She
Well,
chose not to pay for both. Huh?
sometimes seats are randomly assigned, and you can be
Economy
randomly
plus
given.
seats are not randomly assigned. I know this because I fly economy, and I never get into an economy plus seat. So She chose not to pay for her son's seat to be upgraded as well. So she chose to be cheap and then try and land a sob story on whoever was sitting next to her in the plane to get her son to that seat for free. This is not just her trying to take advantage of a situation in the moment. This was her planning to take advantage of a
Yeah,
situation, and then
I,
she throws a hissy fit because it didn't work.
yeah, this woman was not the asshole. Her boyfriend is wrong. End of story. All right,
The person who refused to give up their seat is not the asshole,
I gotta,
not the parent.
yeah,
The
no,
parent was the
the
asshole.
woman who's telling the story, am I the asshole for not giving up my seat, is not the asshole. She did the right thing, and she offered that woman the opportunity to pay her to have the seat because she did spend the extra
Yeah.
money. I think that the fact that she even offered that says that she's not the asshole. She was willing to do it, just acknowledging that she'd get the money back that she'd spent. All right, this is an interesting one. All right, 26 female. I'm aware this is an incredibly controversial topic, but I am at my wits' end with this situation. My family and friends are overseas and mostly incapable of helping me due to inexperience and lack of awareness. So basically, they don't have that exposure to different races and cultures. So I am in the UK for my PhD, and my roommate, 28 female, is Muslim. We usually get along very well and have a respectful. I have been respectful and accommodating for her religious practices. I am very aware of the rising Islamophobia worldwide, and I try to advocate against it whenever I can. I need to mention these things because they become relevant. I am an atheist myself. My roommate, on numerous occasions, has tried to discuss religion and theology with me, but I have quickly shut her down, fearing that this may lead to a conflict due to our differences in beliefs. After several attempts of comparing our respective religious backgrounds, I firmly hold that religion is a topic I do not want to remotely touch because we disagree on these things, and I don't want to have a tense relationship with my roommate. We live under the same roof, and for the most part, she understood and stopped. Everything has been fine for months until she started following these drives on TikTok, where people try to get a non-Muslim to wear a hijab, and they call it a hijab makeover. And then at the end, this non-Muslim woman puts on the hijab and looks very beautiful. Uh, I just gave her a thumbs up, not like an okay, like I'll do it, but I just gave her a thumbs up. Sounds good, and moved on until one day she wanted to practice this on me. I told her I'm not comfortable with it. She told me it's just a piece of cloth and it won't hurt to try because you might end up liking it. I told her, well, that's absolutely right. I don't want to do it because I am simply not interested in doing this. This went back and forth for some time until she told me that she is glad my Islamophobia is finally out in the open and I have exposed myself. So the question is, was this non-religious person, 26 female in the UK, wrong for having rejected this? And is she Islamophobic? I think you're muted there, James.
No and no.
I I think that's a pretty clear answer, but I do believe that some people would disagree with both you and I. As liberal as our perspectives are, she's respectful of the other woman's religion, just not at
Hmm.
all interested in engaging in it
Yep.
whatsoever. And I think that's kind of the end of the story. But not wanting to try something for lack of experience. The sell was you should try it, you might like it. Which is also the reason why I tell young kids they shouldn't do drugs because your friends will tell you, try these drugs, you'll like it. And the answer is almost always, if you do try them, you will like them. That's what drugs are. And then they're addictive and it's downhill from there. So you just never try it. This is not an addictive drug, but kind of just because you'll try it and you might like it is not a reason to try all sorts of new things.
Well, I would say it's simpler than that. Is when someone asks you to do something and you say no, that's the end of the conversation. Like no is a complete sentence. And so you don't need to give a reason for it. There's no justification required here. It's if someone asks you to try something and you're not comfortable with it and you say no,
I
that's it.
So we got another comment from Alex here saying absolutely not. The other person was manipulating, and
I would agree.
I think that calling her Islamophobic is the hardcore, almost gaslighting manipulation here, where people are so afraid to be Islamophobic or so afraid to be racist or hateful that they would almost be obliged to do so, to just do it because they wouldn't want to appear hateful or again. And she said she tries to be an ally, X, Y, and Z, but she doesn't believe in this religion, and she doesn't want to partake in anything that's related to that religion.
Right.
End of story. I'm glad that you and I thought you would be a little more on the Muslim girl side, just being how liberal you are. But I see that
No,
you have
I'm
some
against.
sanity. You have some sanity left in you, so that's good.
I'm against people being forced to do things that they don't want to do.
Yeah, and especially when there's a religious element to it.
Yeah,
I
it's
imagine she asked her to go to a pro Muslim protest or something like that.
or let's flip things and say, imagine that the atheist said was having a BLT
I was just going to say that. Yeah.
and it's like, hey, you should try the sandwich. It's really good. And the Muslim says, I can't eat it because there's pork in it. And you're like, well, try it. You might like it. Like, it,
I have made a decision that I'm not going to do that,
right.
and
And that's the end of the story.
I agree. You want to read another one of these here?
All right. Let me go to.
Mm,
I want to skip that one.
The,
I
the,
don't.
the one that I have on here from Ivy Jewels is an interesting one.
Yeah.
You going to read that one?
Yeah. I just want to trim it down because a lot of these like are way too long.
Yeah, but I think some. I mean, just read it. We got 15 minutes left.
So I, a 27 female, have a friend Livia who's 28 and female. She's been staying with me for a few days because she was in town for work and she didn't want to book a hotel. We've been friends since college, and while she's always a little blunt, it's never really been an issue. Um, but this time it was on a different level. For context, I've always been on the curvier side, and I'm fine with it. I eat healthy, I work out regularly, my doctor isn't concerned. Livia, on the other hand, got super into fitness and clean eating in the last few years, which good for her, but suddenly she thinks she's a nutritionist. The first night out, we ordered takeout. The first night she was here, we ordered takeout, and she made a joke like, "Wow, still on the takeout grind, huh?" And I laughed it off because whatever. But then every meal, she'd make a comment like, "Oh, that's a lot of carbs on the plate for one. Are you sure you need that much oil?" And she even made a joke of how I should get one of those standing desks for when I work from home because, and I quote, "sitting all day isn't doing me any favors." After 2 days of this, I finally snapped. She made another little comment while I was making dinner, something like, "If you can make a meal plan if you want, or I can
I
make you
can
a
make
meal
you a
plan if
meal
you
plan.
want." And I just said to her, "Olivia, I don't need a meal plan. I need you to stop talking about my body in my own house." She looked shocked and was like, "I was just trying to help." I told her it wasn't helpful, but it was rude. And if she couldn't stop, she could go to a hotel instead. She got all huffy and said I was being sensitive, but she packed up and left an hour later. Now a couple of our mutual friends are saying I was harsh and that Livia genuinely meant well. I don't know. Maybe I could handle it differently. Was I the asshole?
So I don't think that should have had any trimming. I think all those details were very fitting, and it really builds up because,
I did some trimming though.
okay, well, yeah, I caught the the thing is when somebody finds fitness or a new hobby or something like that, you almost become, what's the word I'm looking for, where you want to like impose it on other people. You feel that you have done something that's good, and you want to fix other people. You want them to see the light. And I'm guessing she said the friend found fitness, so I'm guessing the friend wasn't in great shape, and probably when she sees this other friend now, it reminds her a lot of herself, and she wants to get her out of that, right? Because she wasn't happy with herself when she was bigger.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Well, there's a difference though.
Okay,
Because
I know the major issue here, and I didn't
well,
get there, but I'm curious what you're going to say.
you can make a recommendation to a person once, and if they reject what you are saying, it's very similar to my previous advice is if they say they're not interested in what you have to say about whatever topic it may be,
Then you must let off.
then yeah, you got to let go.
So
And the issue isn't that her friend was just trying to help with her fitness because she thought that maybe the poster could live healthier. Like if she wanted to say that once of like, "Hey, I've done all these fitness things and nutrition and everything else and it's really helped me." So like
she was
would you
imposing
would
her
you be interested
values.
in hearing my recommendations
Yeah.
here? And as soon as she says, "No, I'm happy with how I'm doing things," that's the last time that
Well,
conversation
she was
should
imposing her
happen.
her values on the poster. the girl who posted this. But what I think is that it happened slowly. It was a couple of small comments, and then and here's the issue: is that the poster never said no, thank you, I'm not interested. She kind of laughed it off. But what happened was they were both in the wrong. But what happened was the poster waited too long and just kind of gave it back to her in the wrong manner. You can pack up and
Well,
go to a hotel. Stop saying this shit. What she should have said was just very calmly, "Hey, I appreciate that you've and I know it's how she dealt with it, given her perspective on it or not, because the other person packed up and left almost immediately. But she should have said, "Hey, I know you found fitness. I think it's great. I'm very happy with myself. I really, really would appreciate it if you stopped imposing your values and your fitness and these beliefs, et cetera, on me. It doesn't make me feel good. I told you I'm happy with myself. I don't want to be you, and this is how I choose to live my life. But let's leave it there, and you can go and do 1,000 crunches tonight to crunch off the Chinese food. End of story. And I really enjoy having you around. It's nice to catch up with you, but just please let's stop now." But it never it because she got to a point where she snapped a little bit.
well, so it's unclear how much she pushed back earlier because, but I will actually agree with you that this probably could have been avoided with earlier and clearer communication and say, hey, I appreciate that you're just trying to help, but I don't really want to hear any comments about my diet or my fitness. I'm happy with how I am,
But she
and I would
snapped a
like you
little
to
too
just leave
much.
it.
And whether she believes it or not, the girl packed up and left. So she was not very tactful when she engaged in conversation about that. That's all.
Well,
And
so
they were
yeah, this
both
is a
wrong. They were
lesson in
both wrong.
communication
Yeah.
where, like, I don't think that she's wrong for being upset with her friend constantly making all these comments, but perhaps she could have done something earlier to better communicate how she felt, and it wouldn't have reached the point that it did.
All right. I got a couple more questions here. Um, this is a Quora question. How difficult is it to be very close to somebody with the opposite political views? I'm conservative. My husband is more liberal. Curious to know how you deal with stark differences in opinion. So, question for you: being a liberal, could you be with a staunch Republican?
Probably not.
Uh, being you claim atheism, yeah.
Yeah,
How
not
could you
a
or
religious.
agnostic? Okay, well, um, could you be with somebody who is very religious?
Probably, and I say that because I was.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of how you like you. I don't think in a relationship you guys should agree on everything. Okay, it's just there are certain aspects, and it really depends on how much it overlaps your life. Like if you feel very strongly about something and the other person completely disagrees with you, and it's a core component of who you are and who you believe yourself to be, then probably you can't. And people have been growing more political and more extreme, so I could see that these more extreme people probably should not be in a relationship with the people that are on the polar opposite of that,
So I think here's the difference as to why I was in a relationship with someone who was very religious and that wasn't much of an issue.
because she respected your views.
Well, we both respected each other's views when it came to religion. It didn't come up very much, but there were a couple practices that she had, and I was like, that's not a big deal for me to respect. It was like one of them was like she didn't eat pork, and I was like, okay, that I won't cook pork for you, and I will try and avoid eating pork around you, like as much as I can. Like if I'm in a restaurant, I'm not going to eat pork, and like if I'm expecting you to come over, I won't cook pork that day. Those kind of things. That was not a big
I
sacrifice for
think
me at
that's a
all.
really good way to look at it. I think that's a really
But
good way to look at it.
here's what I would say.
You're making it work. But some
So,
people, some of the things
well,
don't fit together.
here's where I draw the difference is I think that her religious views didn't conflict with any ethical views that I have. In terms of my system of ethics and her system of ethics, while different, did not have major conflicts. Whereas
And that's where the
if
political
someone
shit.
holds really strongly conservative views, it's very possible that there are going to be conflicts between our foundational ethical beliefs,
That's what I said.
and that would not be workable.
These core things. All right, another question here. Um, All right. Is it advisable for a guy to be talkative when he's around his crush?
Yes and no.
um, that's a very complicated question.
No, but
But
it's yes and no.
I think the general answer would be that you shouldn't just be silent and fade into the wallpaper, and that you need to be present in the conversation. And
Well,
we're getting caught. Uh-oh, we're getting caught off of TikTok here.
what
All
did
right,
we do this time?
I don't know. I had to put the puzzle piece in the puzzle piece to stay on TikTok.
Oh, okay. So we didn't get banned for anything
But
this time.
I think you I just think you should be conversational, engage in the conversation, share your opinion, but you shouldn't be the one that's the center of attention unless that's your personality. And then if the other person likes you or doesn't like you, that's their opinion. But if you're not that personality, then you shouldn't try to be the center of attention. But you can't just fade into the wallpaper.
Let me give
We're
very
short on
simple
time,
advice
so,
here.
so
I know,
hit it
but
quick.
this will be 1 minute.
All right.
Is you need to be talkative enough to show who you are to this person, and hopefully sell yourself. But you also need to shut up and see if they introduce any kind of topics of conversation or if they share anything about themselves. Because if you're talking all the time, you will have no idea whether or not they're interested. And also, that probably is a formula for them to not be interested anyways if all you do is talk.
But
So
that's
there
also
has to be a give and
conversation.
take.
Yeah, that's conversation skills, and I think that's
Yes.
the you need to learn about conversation skills. Which, by the way, super easy. Just Google conversation skills, and it'll tell you to ask open-ended questions and listen, and then
Yeah.
respond to those questions with in-depth
All right.
responses
I
and follow
want to
up.
hit this.
Let me hit the Bart trivia. It's very short, and
Okay.
then you hit the last one here. Bart trivia question two, episode 265. Forward, I'm heavy. Backwards, I'm not. What am I? Forward, I'm heavy. Backwards, I'm not. What am I? Go ahead, James.
All right. I want to hit this. I'm skipping over
Just hit it.
the hookup one.
Answer the question because we only have time for one more.
All right. It makes me. I'm 15. I'm a 15-year-old boy. It makes me sad watching all these people live a happy life with their attractive girlfriends. I'm an ugly and boring guy that will never be loved by any attractive women. I know I sound like a hypocrite, but I don't want to date an ugly girl. And so the unasked question is, what do I do?
Yeah. Um, First off, who you are at 15 is probably the worst version of who you will ever be in your entire life. It is the most awkward, uncomfortable place you could ever be. You got to develop your social skills. You got to find some interests. You got to take care of yourself physically, mentally. Find a hobby. Do some shit. Don't worry about boyfriends or girlfriends. None of that shit's gonna last. Everybody who has sex, who's a girl or even a guy, people are not going to be. It's not a good look, when you're 15 years old.
At 15, everything is terrible.
Everything's bad. Even the people that are in the relationships, you have major underlying insecurities, and I'm sure it looks great because they hold hands walking down the hallway, but they're just probably super insecure. Everybody's insecure
Yeah.
at 15. But develop your personality, find some interests, pay
Yeah.
attention to fitness.
If you work on yourself, if you think you're ugly, then there are things that you can do. Get like work on physical fitness and hygiene. Like
Just
those are
personal
two.
development. Just personal development is the
Yeah.
solution.
But
Don't give
and
a
if
fuck
you think
about
you're
anybody else
boring,
at 15.
well, find hobbies. Like do something, and if you work on your fitness and your hygiene, and you do something
But
that
also find interesting, better hobbies than James has. Don't play Magic cards or Pokemon or Dungeons
I
and
don't play
Dragons.
Pokemon.
I know. I'm just saying, playing board games. Find some cooler hobbies. Don't collect
Yeah,
mushrooms or stamps or coins or something.
yeah,
Find some cool hobbies, but
yeah.
focus on building yourself and your personality. Don't worry about everybody
Well,
else.
and if you
15 is
do
like the
all of
worst.
those things, the interest will just come. People will find you interesting because you've made yourself interesting.
But these people that are in great, from the outside perspective, in these great relationships, and you're
If you're 15, all
the
your
dudes
friends
that you
are
were in
15,
high school with and middle school with who are dating these girls. None,
yeah,
I remember being a kid and adults be like, I don't even remember anybody from high school. That's sort of happening to me now. Like I forgot all of this. It's just not relevant in my
yeah.
adult life.
But I would just say if you're 15 and all of your friends are 15, none of them have great relationships.
I would agree with you. And on that note, I want to thank you guys for joining. Don't forget to visit siptalkpodcast.com, buy us a drink, check out the merch, and we will see you next time. Adios. right, you made it this far. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to visit SipTalkPodcast.com, buy us a drink, answer the bar trivia question, and I'll see you, no, you'll see us next time. Adios.
Go ahead.
Step in to the lady at 46 South Rose. 46 South Rose.
Station 1 call, refill that please. 10-4. Have the floor to go to that location also. This is 19, is that correct?
Sorry, one last four?
Correct, 185.4 miles, and I'll refill there. There's a cop 185.24 mile, station 1. There's a station 1 call, 85.24 mile, station 1.